Alright, welcome to the UFC 326 full card breakdown. Technology is actually working well for once, so we should be good today. How are you guys doing? Because I didn't do the recap last week, or for Saturday I should say, I will probably start with the recap, then do the questions, then go into the breakdown again. Hey guys, how you doing? Finally almost not sick, so that is nice. I wonder. Can we get a 1 hour breakdown breaking down the intricacies of Macy Chazon's style? I think everyone would fall asleep by minute 2. That would be a problem. Protes by KO, that's possible. I am leaning JDM there, but I wouldn't be shocked if Protes won. Yuri or Ulberg? I am leaning Yuri, but I am worried for him because he gets hit a lot early, and Ulberg has more power than someone like, say, Roundtree. What's up? What do you think of Frasiam? I think he's extremely underrated. And the fact that he's been like underdog or near even odds so many times has just been free money. And I'm so disappointed with Daniel Zellhuber. Yeah, that was impressively bad. Like, I knew he wasn't great, but getting finished by Bobby Green in 2026 is wild. Hey Oracle, what's up? Are we going to start with last week's card breakdown? Yes, we are. And I'm doing alright. What about you? Alright, so let me move over to the breakdown. Or last week's breakdown, rather. I think this should be big enough. Alright, here we go. Starting with Damien versus Wes Schultz. Schultz is even worse than I thought. I don't think Damien did anything special. I mean, he did show he has some grappling defense, so that's great at least. Schultz just is terrible. Like, dude has no defense whatsoever. I don't know how he got this many wins. So there's not much to say there. Like, it was kind of a non-fight. Francis Marshall versus Eric Silva. Marshall looked pretty good. Honestly, Silva looked better than I expected. He looked extremely explosive. Like, even though he's older, it looked like he improved. He's just not at the level that he's going to be able to compete with Marshall. Marshall, again, this was kind of an apology matchup for him, it felt like, when he didn't get the win against Myron Santos. So, yeah, I mean, he's still a relatively high-level guy, maybe edge of rankings. I would like to see him have, like, a ranking shot disqualifier, so to speak. So one guy like near the edge of rankings, maybe a gatekeeper and such. Regina Turin versus Ernesta, however you say her last name. It was a good performance from Turin. The main issue with her is that her wrestling sucks. Once she gets the fight to the ground, she is actually extremely effective there. And on the feet, she is okay. She's gotten a lot better since her earlier tape. But her wrestling itself, absolute garbage. So yeah, I mean, if she can get that into better shape, she has a chance to go pretty far in the division, because her striking alone is kind of dangerous, which is surprising that given that she started as a pure grappler. But yeah, I mean, she definitely has a future, and it's definitely good for this division. Javier Reyes versus Douglas Silva de Andrade. So we saw exactly what I was saying with Reyes. His defense is just abysmal. So I don't know why they didn't give Andrade a knockdown. I felt like he got a knockdown there, but it is what it is. He hurt Reyes a few times. Then, of course, he got caught, and Reyes was able to keep pushing until he technically got the finish. I thought that was a very weird finishing sequence because, I mean, Andrade was present enough to taunt Reyes for not getting the finish, which should mean that the fight shouldn't get stopped with 1 second left, in my opinion, but that is what it is. Herb Dean loves to have the most, like, random stoppages of all time, so I can't say I'm shocked there. Moving on to Quinones versus Montinho. I mean, Quinones looked okay. Cardio held up, I could say. Montinho is just, I mean, it sucks for him. He's just not talented at all. Quinones really didn't show anything that felt special. It's like, I feel like you should be finishing Montinho. I had a feeling he wouldn't. But yeah, I don't know. It just was not a good performance from either of them, in my opinion, even though, like, Quinones didn't do anything, like, overtly terrible, I guess. Eileen Perez versus Macy Chazon. Perez looked good. I mean, she had that little mishap in round 1. She has had those problems before where she gets reversed when she's bringing the fight to the ground or right after. So she needs to get that in check. But other than that, pretty clear domination everywhere. She was just better, just better wrestler by far. Gondra versus Medina was just... Medina's a walking heavy bag. For those of you who heard my analysis last week, I couldn't find a single good thing to say about him. So I can't say much about Gondra just from that. I mean, we knew Gondra could spam hooks. That's nothing new. Luna versus Pacheco. I was a little disappointed with Luna. Not because he didn't look good technically, but because the fight IQ was a little questionable. Like, he'd hurt Pacheco, and then need to just throw a few more strikes to probably get him down, and then he would just randomly shoot. And he did this like 3 times. So Luna looked good in the sense that his technique was good, his cardio held up. 131 strikes when you have knockout power, along with 5 takedowns at altitude, is no small feat. So Luna is solid. It's just he needs to not make those decisions that are preventing him from getting finishes at this level, because someone else that is not a 40-year-old who has the punching power of a toddler will punish him for it. Imanol Rodrigues versus Kevin Borjas. We did see what I was worried about for Rodrigues here, in the sense that he enters the pocket recklessly and Borjas can counter very well. That being said, Imanol, of course, worked through it, got the takedown when he needed to, and then Borjas just... I'm assuming he gassed. I assume he had an adrenaline dump when he couldn't finish Rodrigues in round 1, and that kind of led to him just like quitting off of a glancing shot. Borjas isn't bad. He just has a few things he needs to put together, and like Rodrigues is still good, but he has to clean up his entries because he is very open to being clipped as he jumps in. Chairez versus Felipe Bunaz was a weird fight. As I was saying, and as you guys saw, it was a much closer fight than the odds were making it seem, so I'm glad I was right there. However, I don't know what Chairez was doing. Like, he was not aggressive at all, except, like, I guess parts of round 3. Like, rounds 1 and round 2 until the cup shot, he just kind of throwing the jab and doing nothing else. It's a very strange performance from him, and his wrestling defense is still abysmal. Bunez definitely showed that. So, I can't say I saw anything good from Chairez here, in all honesty, even though he gets that win. Biggest upset of the night, Green versus Zellhuber. I mean, Zellhuber's just garbage, right? Like, you've got to cut him at this point. He lost as a minus 700 favorite, a minus 300 something favorite, and now is like a minus 500 favorite. And to be fair, I don't know why he was a minus 500 favorite here when he just got fraud checked by like 50-year-old Michael Johnson, but he had nothing. It's like he didn't even have a good jab here. It's just he was just lunging in with weird shots and kicks that didn't even have any impact on them. And then just like diving into the pocket when he has like a 5-inch reach advantage. What are you doing? What are you working on in the gym? He has a lot of talent for sure, but he absolutely did not use any of it. So I didn't see anything special from Bobby Green in the sense of like, that's what Bobby Green always does, right? He looks slow, he looked kind of old in all honesty, but Zellhuber refused to do anything intelligent. So, I mean, good highlight for Green, I guess, and I guess you have to give him like a rankings disqualifier shot. Maybe if Johnson beats Dober, then that would be a good fight. But yeah, just useless prospect, and it sucks because he got a lot of opportunities that other people should have. Anyways, Martinez versus Chito Vera. Martinez looked good rounds 1 and 2, especially the first half of round 1. Chito, again, it's part of why I was kind of nervous about this fight for Martinez. Chito definitely had the ability to win this fight. He just didn't push for it. Had he fought in round 2 like he did in round 3, he probably would have gassed out Martinez faster and edged round 2 and taken round 3, or gotten a finish in round 3. But Chito just refuses to step on the gas until he literally needs a finish. And yeah, it just dooms him. Martinez's footwork was great, but of course, at altitude, when you're using full power in every strike, as you slow down, that will get harder and harder. So, decent performance for Martinez. I think the altitude was specifically bad for him, because usually he does have pretty good cardio going into round 3. He has 2 round 4 finishes as well, so he does keep up his pace. But yeah, altitude is always going to be rough for him. Kavanaugh versus Moreno went kind of how I thought it would, except I thought Moreno would be able to push the pace harder if Kavanaugh gassed. The one thing that I did not calculate was Moreno taking so much damage that he slowed down terribly also. But we did see exactly what I was talking about. Moreno's really open whenever he throws the lead hook, and the check hook counter was just there for Kavanaugh all day. I think Moreno is, like, in all honesty, full-blown wash now, which sucks to say as a fan of his. But his physicality was not there, and he was just not able to push a pace. It was not fun to watch, to say the least. His boxing is not as nuanced as it used to be. It's like his movements are just less sharp. He just doesn't have the power he used to either. It's it's kind of like a Tony-like decline, where the skills are still there, it's just the ability to implement them is not. Kavanagh, on the flip side, for short notice at altitude, looks pretty good. I still think he's going to struggle in 5-round fights with people who are not at the same points in their career that Moreno is. So, like, I could see a 5-round fight with Horiguchi being tough for Kavanagh, where Kavanagh is able to take like rounds 1 and 2, but does really struggle in rounds 3, 4, and 5 because Horiguchi is going to keep up the pace for all 5 rounds. But yeah, I am excited about Kavanagh's future. He is one of those prospects that could at some point be a champion, even though I feel like he's going to settle in like the top 5 and never quite get there. But all in all, was a relatively solid card. There were a fair number of finishes. We had a few fights like the Quinones-Montino fight that was like, what are we doing here? And of course, so many massive favorites that I can't say like a lot of these fights meant a lot. But other than that, I'm not going to say it was terrible for a fight night. Let's see what you guys are saying. The Hooper is done. Have fun in the PFL. Yeah, 100%. The Hooper had heavyweight punch speed. Yeah, it's impressive. Moreno's turbo wash. He needs to leave. I always forget how to say his name, but yeah, I know who you're talking about. For any chance of a comeback. Yeah, he definitely does need to. Oh, Safe Sayud, yeah. He definitely needs to if he wants to, but I feel like he should just retire, and I say that as a fan of his. Moreno had no power that fight? Yeah, 100%. The Kavanagh's cardio was very impressive and surprising when compared to his last fight. I mean, yes and no. It's just like his output in rounds 3, 4, and 5 dropped a lot, and he even lost round 3 after nearly knocking out Moreno like 3 times in round 2, which is kind of rough. I never want to see Moreno fight again, man. That was awful. It was disgraceful. It seems like he's fake fighting out there. I mean, it's not his intention. He's just not capable of it anymore, unfortunately. Loner versus Manuel. I think it depends 3 or 5 rounds. It would be a fun one, though, for sure. Lagging for me? I think the connection is fine, so it might be just on YouTube side, in all honesty. Carlos or Yuri, who wins? Tough one, but I'd lean Yuri, I guess. Alright. So maybe I'll take a few questions, random stuff, and then like in 3 or so minutes we'll just get into the breakdown. I was lagging horrendously, but I reopened the app and it's fine now. Yeah, YouTube just doing YouTube things, unfortunately. Not lagging for me. Okay, that's good, yeah. I don't even think the cardio looked good, to be honest. It was more just the fact that Moreno didn't have much output to push the pace at all and kind of let Loner cruise. Yeah, I agree. You just, if your opponent's not doing anything, it's very easy to have quote-unquote good cardio. Why is Adaba getting fed cans again? Because he couldn't finish Pulev, basically. Jan or Martinez, 5 rounds. At altitude, Jan would definitely win. The question really is Martinez's cardio, because I do think Martinez will win the early rounds. It's a tough one. I could see it going either way. How fast is Armantsov Giorgio? I honestly don't know. I didn't watch any of the wrestling match, so I have no idea who the guy is. YouTube is awful? Yeah, unfortunately. Were you surprised Loner's lack of ability to get off the fence? Not really. I mean, he did a good job of stuffing the takedowns, to be fair. Ozzy or Adaba? I'll have to do tape for it. I'm actually not that confident in Adaba. Oracle, do you still think Gaudier beats Ngannou? It's very possible, because he has the power to, and he's just a little better. Loner managed this fight much better than any of his previous fights. That's the main thing. To an extent, yeah. Hey, Oracle, no glaze. These interactive streams genuinely making me more excited than anything led up to play. I'm glad to hear it. Thank you. What is JPL ceiling? I still believe he could be a champion. Robert Martinez, 5 rounds. You know, let Martinez get one more fight in. Let him fight like a... What's a good example? Like maybe like a Ayman Zahabi or something like that. And if he can get through that, then I think he's going to give these guys a hard time. Holloway or Saryukin in a 5-rounder. I'd probably take Holloway. Who do you think is fighting for the middleweight belts? It's pointing towards Strickland, which is the surprising thing. From both the Discord. Yes, if you guys are betting on this card, do consider joining the Discord. We are doing extremely well there. We have the algorithms, we have my reads. We did over 250 units in profit last year. along with multiple plus 25 or plus 30,000 parlays. And we have plenty of bets on the board already and such, as well as all of my analysis, including exact percentages of what I think is going to happen every single fight. What was the best bet you cashed on UFC Mexico? I had a parlay on Ibn Al Rodriguez. Let me see. Yeah, my parlay was Ibn Al Rodriguez, Luna, Gondra, and Marshall. And while it was a boring parlay, it was very safe to stake a fair amount on, which made sure I had pretty much guaranteed profit for the night. So I was happy about that. Sean wants the easy fight against Zahabi. Fair. I mean, I think a lot of people believe Zahabi is the easiest fight out of like the top 10-ish range right now to get you close to a title shot, so I understand why people want it. Not including Ilya, who at 170 has the best chance of beating Islam. I'd slightly lean towards Morales, I guess, although I'm not positive between him and Gary, because Gary has like the tendency of just doing enough to win, even if it's not impressive. And I wouldn't be shocked if he could do that against Islam. Who do you think will be the best Dana White Contender Series to come out of Season 9? I'd have to recheck all of them, to be honest. Were you up units on UFC Mexico? Yes, I was. Nothing dramatic, but I was up like 3 units. Why is Rodolfo Bellato still signed? Because he has fairly entertaining fights, even if he loses. That's probably why. You think Ferreira wins? I think he might just be fat and get kicked at range. It's tough, though. If Brunno's in good shape, he might sleep Gregory again. We'll get into that soon. Alright, I will start the breakdown now, and then maybe at the midpoints between like the main card, I'll answer a few more questions. Let me get my notes up. Alright, starting with Luke Fernandez versus Rodolfo Bellato. So, Luke Fernandez is kind of a heavy-handed grappler. He will lunge in with a 1-2 on the outside, and then he'll kind of just try to work into the clinch and push you against the fence. Once you're pushed against the fence, he'll just grind for the takedown constantly. If he is able to get the fight to the ground, he will look to land ground and pound, then chase a sub if it opens up. His wrestling isn't very good, which holds him back quite a bit in my opinion, because he tries to use it a lot, and it's just not there. If he has to stand, he's generally going to focus on the 1-2 and the lone lead hook. His defense is a combination of range and head movement. He is pretty good at slipping shots and controlling distance. Bellato is kind of just like a Terminator-style fighter. He just wants to get you into the clinch and then just continue to do stuff until he can finish you. He'll throw in combinations, he'll shoot a lot of double legs. When he does shoot double legs, he's going to aggressively chase the finish on the ground. He's not like awaiting. He's just going to start smashing ground and pound and then go for subs. He has the worst head movement I've seen in UFC history. Like, literally not an inch of head movement. He also doesn't really have a high guard, so he will eat a lot of strikes, but he is very durable. It is hard to put him away. So that is a plus for him. I was forgetting about this for a while. I do want to bring back the polls for who we think is going to win this, and then I'll give my opinion. So I'm going to do this before the breakdown for the next one, but quickly I'm going to do a poll for Bellato versus Fernandez here. See if it aligns with what I'm thinking. Alright, the poll is up. Let's see. Starting at 60% for Fernandez, up to nearly 70%. We'll leave this up for like 30 seconds. For the future ones, I'll probably leave it up for a little longer. Ooh, up to 80%. Wayne forgetting that bro basically quit against Paul Craig. That was a weird circumstance, in all honesty. Like, I don't know why he would quit there, which is why I've kind of maintained the thought that maybe it was just a weird kick. Does Bellato even train MMA? I would hope so. Honestly, think Bellato is very live, to be honest. Fair. Bellato versus Craig Part 2. Bellato is 1-1-1-1 in the UFC. Yeah, he has a weird record, to say the least. Alright, I'm going to close the poll here, and then I'll give you guys my opinion. So, this is a weird fight, because Fernandez has all the tools to win the fight, but I don't like his style, because his best strength, in my opinion, is the striking. He has pretty clean striking. but he insists on using the wrestling constantly, and he doesn't have the wrestling. So the majority of the fights ends up being like clinch grappling against the fence. And that doesn't really benefit him against Bellato, who's very competent in that position and is going to be stronger than the other opponents that he's faced. Now, that being said, Fernandez lunging in with the 1-2, I think could catch Bellato clean here, because Bellato's not going to move his head and he doesn't really react to the quick movements well. So I'm going to tentatively pick Fernandez by TKO, but I mean, he opened as a massive favorite. I don't know if I really agree with that, because if he just starts clinching for 15 minutes, like, who knows who wins the small exchanges within that? And like, who knows if Bellato's able to reverse him and then just like open up on the fence and finish him immediately there. Fernandez also has very little experience compared to Bellato. And not that I think like experience always drives everything by any means, but only 6 fights and now going against a decent fighter in the UFC is not something I love to see, in all honesty. But yeah, we will go tentatively Luke Fernandez by TKO. All right. Junlug Lee versus Gaston Bolaños. I will open a poll for that again. All right, the poll is live. Even though Bellato is mid, I don't think Fernandez should be that much of a favorite. Yeah, I get what you mean. Bellato by craziest shenanigans possible. It would be funny if this was like another draw or something. All right, we're starting with a mild favorite for Lee, 55% about. And Team Utsuporia by KO. Be funny. Warrior versus the Green Zombie. Ooh, down to a 50-50. Interesting. All right, I'll leave this live for a few more seconds. You guys are very split on this one. Team Utsuporia flipped to a slight favorite for a moment, but now Lee is back as a slight favorite. All right. 5 more seconds, then we're going to close this. Oracle, I promise you it's only a 50-50 because you called in Team Utsuporia. That is possible. All right. So getting into the notes here. So where are we? Here. Okay. Lee is extremely well-rounded, but he has very questionable fight IQ at times. Like, just rolling with Haider Emil was the only way that he could lose to Haider Emil. And he decided to do it and get finished. So that was not the best to see. On the outside, he will throw a lot of kicks. And he blasts them a lot harder than someone like Bolaños does. Even though Bolaños does throw a lot of kicks, Lee's going to throw them much harder. When he enters, he tends to put combinations together. It's not as much singular shots. He's good at mixing body shots into combinations. So he'll go head-head, body-head. Like, that's one of his favorite combinations. When he does throw single shots, it's usually as counters. He will just blast a single shot as hard as he can to counter. His takedown defense against the cage is solid, but in the center, it can definitely be questionable. He does have good trips and throws, and on the ground, he does have good control, but he's not the best at really like chasing the finish from there. He'll land a little bit of ground and pound and such, so the ref doesn't like stand them up, but he's not really going to be one to like chase a sub or knock you out with ground and pound and such. Bolaños is effectively a pure kickboxer who just tries to use it in MMA. He kind of floats around on the outside and then tries to like flow into strikes. He uses a lot of kicks and will just constantly switch up the target and his stance that he's throwing from different angles constantly. He mainly throws singular strikes, unlike Lee, and sometimes it's a jab, sometimes the cross, but usually just one at a time. When he does throw combos, it doesn't seem like it has much damaging intent behind it. It's kind of just to score points. Just like in general, everything he does doesn't have much power. He's basically just a point striker. His defense consists mainly of just raising his hands as he moves around on the outside. That works better in kickboxing, of course, because the gloves are much larger. In MMA, that is not the ideal defense, to say the least, because people can just throw around the gloves or between the gloves and so on. So I am going to pick Lee by decision. Could be a TKO as well, but I don't think he's going to push the pace enough for that, because I just don't think that Bolaños is talented enough for MMA. If he can't hurt you, so his only opportunity is to just outpoint strike you for 15 minutes. And he's not a great point striker because his defense kind of sucks. So it's a situation where like I don't know how he's going to win against anyone who has any danger whatsoever, who is not like a complete can. So I don't know. Lee is always fun, so this should be a good fight. But yeah, I mean, I just can't really see Bolaños having much success in general in the UFC anymore. Why are the Ilya alter egos gathered to fight on this card? I don't know. Bolaños would get hit by a Pars car, valid. Low IQ for Lee, but he definitely should win. Yes, I agree. All right, moving on to Rafael Tobias versus Diyar. Is it Dihar or Diyar? I don't know. Nurgozhay. I will put up a poll for this one as well. All right, poll is up. Diyar Nurgozhay is actually one of the worst fighters on the roster, in my opinion. I get what you mean. Hey, I'm a little late. Quick thoughts on the Moreno fight. So, I just feel like Moreno is washed. Now, I do think that Kavanaugh is good, right? He is very fast for the division, and he managed his cardio relatively well that fight. But I do think that Moreno's like reaction time is going, his physicality is going, and so on. 75% on Tobias. Oh, dropping a little bit. Who's Oracle's favorite UFC fighter, and why is it might have been world by? I never know how to name a single favorite, in all honesty. Ever see a tick be so bad in a fighter? Yeah, I agree. Alright, Tobias settling around to like 70-ish%. I'll close the poll in a few seconds. Alright, we'll end it here. Tobias is at 67%, I believe. Alright, so starting with Tobias. Tobias is a relatively well-rounded finisher, but he's a lot more patient than you would expect for a finisher. He'll poke a lot on the outside with long jabs, teeps, and calf kicks. He generally likes to counter-strike on the feet, so he's going to wait for his opponent to throw and then kind of like lunge with lead hooks or crosses and such. Even his jabs honestly have like semi-knockout power, but he's kind of slow. Like his sacrifice is power for speed. So he's not going to be able to like blitz you quickly, but if he lands, it is going to be a problem. Defensively, he will alternate with between distance management, head movement, and just straight up blocking. He'll randomly change things up with takedowns and go for any type of finish from there on the ground as quickly as possible. If you present your back, he's just going to go for the choke. If not, he's just going to land a bunch of ground and pound. His record has a lot of TKOs. Mainly, that does come from ground and pound, although some of them are on the feet. Moving on to Diyar. He is a southpaw striker, and he basically has like only, or not even basically, he literally has only two weapons. Like 90+% of what he throws are just left round kicks and left hands. In the pocket, occasionally he will throw a combo, but he often just like backs out after throwing the left hand anyway, so he doesn't even like throwing combos or the right hand at all. His takedowns are mainly blast doubles, and he is absolutely terrible on the ground. Like getting subbed by a Kimura from a non-very high-level BJJ practitioner at this point in time is abysmal. So seeing that was just like, okay, what the hell are we doing? His defense is basically just backing straight up out of range. So if you put like any combination together and move forwards, you will probably clip and put him down. I'm going to go with Tobias by sub. I think that he will probably hurt Diyar on the feet and then lock up the sub on the ground. It could definitely be a TKO as well because Diyar's defense just sucks pretty much everywhere. I don't know how this guy is on the roster. He's absolutely awful at pretty much everything. Like when he throws the left hand, he literally throws it from his hip and then will bring it back to his hip afterwards. Like, what are we doing? How is this UFC level competition? But anyways, yeah. Tobias sub, TKO is pretty close, and at least hopefully it's entertaining and like Tobias gets a highlight they can use to push him or something. All right, moving on to Sumudaerji versus Jesus Aguilar. I will put up a poll for this as well. All right, the poll is up. Anybody who gets subbed by an Ezekiel choke is automatically terrible. Pretty much, yes. Do you consider Diyar's take when analyzing him? If it was a close fight, I would consider it more, but I didn't even need to. If you put every Eastern Asian in a forest, only one can leave Hunger Games styles and offer the winner horse meat. Which one would walk out? I mean, I don't even know what the options are. Thoughts on Islam versus Morales rumors? I mean, it makes sense. It was probably just going to be Morales or Gary, so I'm not shocked. I'm not picking against someone who lost to Schnell. Don't you mean you're not picking someone who lost to Schnell? I think you mean the opposite. Alright, so Sumudaerji starting at 67%. God bless that 62-inch reach on Jesus. Yeah, that is even a little low for WMMA, to be honest. You meant the opposite? Yeah, I got what you meant. Morales deserves the most since he knocked out the #1 contender. Yeah, I mean, you could definitely argue that, for sure. I don't agree. I don't disagree, rather. Alright, I'm going to close the poll here with Sumudaerji at 73%. So, starting with Sumudaerji. So, Sumudaerji is a long, rangy striker who is mainly going to point fight. He mainly throws out jabs and round kicks at range while moving around on the outside. He'll throw lone crosses early, but once he gets his timing a bit better, he'll start throwing the 1-2 a bit more comfortably. His defense is mainly range because of the fact that he is so rangy compared to most of this division and movement oriented, but if you get into the pocket, then he is definitely hittable. He has been submission prone in the past, but his grappling does seem to be improving fight to fight, so it is hard to say how much that'll be relevant moving forwards. Aguilar is an extremely aggressive finisher from basically all positions. On the feet, he throws combinations with a lot of hooks. Given the fact that he has a tiny reach, he's not someone who's going to be able to land across, so he's got to get into the pocket and throw hooks. He's always trying to close the distance because of that, so he'll just straight up run forwards as he throws. He does have underrated one-punch knockout power for the division. I do think it is kind of because the leverage he gets from the shorter reach with overhands and such. In grappling, all he wants to do is just move towards the guillotine. Like, that is his only move in grappling. Just pull the guillotine over and over. To be fair, he is pretty good at it, though. His takedown defense is a bit suspect. He has gotten taken down a lot. He sometimes is able to find the guillotine if you do keep trying to take him down, but if not, he definitely can be taken down and held down sometimes. He does use distance management as defense, along with a threat of his power and sometimes a high guard, but basically he just wants to be all the way out or all the way in, because if he's at his range, you can't really punch it because he has to be close to punch you. But if he is not in his range, then he can't hit you and you can just hit him. So he just wants to be very far away or very close. I don't think that Aguilar is really going to be able to pin Sumudaerji against the fence because Sumudaerji does have better footwork. So I think that Sumudaerji is probably just going to be able to pick at him with the jab for most of the fight. I'm going to pick Sumudaerji by decision. Obviously, Aguilar has the finishing upside here, but Sumudaerji is just very hard to hit clean for someone who doesn't have spectacular footwork or a reach that is comparable with him. So, yeah. Sumudaerji is one of those guys who is fairly technical, but just probably is never going to be overtly exciting in a fight that he is winning handedly. Alright, moving on to Cody Durden versus Genghis Khan 2.0. So I will put up a poll for this. Alright, this poll should be up. Sumo was low-key robbed against Charles Johnson if you rewatch the fight. It was a very close round one. I think it was too close to say that he was robbed, but I do understand what you mean. Okay, right now Khan is at 62%. Durden is a flyweight Cody Brundage. Well, they are both named Cody, so. Was Charles Johnson, Duncan, King, Van, and Loner, who were both in the top 5, but losing to Alex Perez? Well, he got Van and Loner when they were both early in their careers, and he got an Alex Perez who's been around for a while, right? Johnson's not a very good fighter, in all honesty. But when he's good at not like fraud checking, but beating prospects, let's say, that just make mistakes. We are parlaying all 3 Codys together to get KO'd. Fair. That reminds me, how is the commission even allowing Brundage to fight? Who knows, honestly. Octagon, how are you doing? Alright, how are you? Durden versus Xiao, who would win in a rematch? I mean, probably Durden. Alright, so it seems like Khan is staying at around 62%. I will end the poll. Alright, so let's get into the analysis for this one. So Cody Durden is a pace-oriented fighter. He's typically on the wrestling-heavy side for how he pushes the pace. He does keep up pressure on the feet, but he doesn't really have the cleanest boxing, in all honesty. Other than the jabs, he throws a lot of looping shots that kind of do leave a fair number of openings. His wrestling is quite solid, but once the fight is on the ground, he can't really do damage or find a submission, so the opponent tends to just get up and he kind of needs to repeat the process over and over, which is why you see in a lot of Durden's early wins in the UFC, he'll have like 5 to 10 takedowns just to get like 2 rounds and such. He does seem kind of washed. And what I mean by that is like his cardio just randomly started declining. I don't know if he changed something in his training or he's just taking too much damage, but he will slow down a lot when that used to be kind of like his talent. He also has one of the worst chins in MMA I've seen. Khan 2.0 isn't fully polished yet, but he's already a pretty dangerous finisher for most positions. On the feet, he tends to throw jab into overhands, teeps, or calf kicks. His best takedowns are his trips and throws. He does shoot double legs, but they're not spectacular in all honesty. On the ground, he's generally looking to lock up a submission immediately no matter what the position is. Even if he knocks you down, if you're not like fully unconscious, he will tend to jump on a sub right after that. His defense is mainly fading backwards, so he definitely can have trouble against combinations or when people pressure a lot. I do think this is one of those fights where Durden's going to look good early, and it's going to be like, oh, Durden's back, he's getting takedowns, he's landing strikes, and then he gets hit by a jab and gets knocked out. He's probably going to get like dropped by something very insignificant, and whether he gets KO'd or subbed from there, he probably will get finished, because Durden has to basically fight a perfect 15 minutes. And with his style, it's very hard to fight a perfect 15 minutes because he doesn't have great defense. So Khan can basically just land anything at any point, whether it's round 2, round 3, last 10 seconds of the fight, and it will probably lead to a finish for him. So I'm going to go by TKO, just because Durden's chin is so bad that he might be unconscious by the time he hits the ground, but it definitely could be a sub that he locks up right after. Durden is going to be winning and then lose maxing. Valid. Alright, moving on to Ricky Turcios versus Alberto Montes. So I'll put up a poll for this. Khan's grappling looked really mid against Bilal's teammate. I forget his name. I think Durden's wrestling was impressive against Van. I know who you're talking about. I'm blanking on his name as well, but he is a relatively good grappler. Gang is going to eat a mammoth leg after this. Valid. Khan club and sub most likely. Very possible. I'll guess the damn well if it means Charles to win. Fair. I feel bad for people who have a horrible chin. Fighting must be such a pain with the trash chin. Yeah, I get what you mean. It's tough. If UFC don't contract Caucasian fighters, PFL can be best organization MMA with more evolution in MMA, more UFC. I'm confused what you're asking. I mean, UFC has plenty of Caucasian fighters, so I'm slightly confused. Gonna look like Durden versus Nascimento fight? Yeah, very likely. Saporia versus Patty, that'd be a funny fight. Misclick Turcios, that happens, alright. I'm sad that Koga got his fight cancelled due to his injury. Yeah, that's unfortunate. I tried pronouncing his name and my furniture started floating. Valid. It's like what? Nyamjargal to Tumendemberel? Tumendemberel? I don't know, something like that. Do you think Ilya would KO Patty in one if they fought? How he lasted against Gaethje. Yeah. Ilya will knock out both Gaethje and Paddy in round 1. All right, I'm going to end the poll here. All right, so starting with Ricky Turcios. Ricky Turcios is just a high volume striker in general. He'll throw a lot of kicks to all targets. He'll switch stances to kick as well. He fights like a little bit hunched over, which kind of makes his defense bad. It's a very strange stance in all honesty. He will dive on a leg if he needs to change things up. He'll try to like jump to the back as well, because he is jumping for back takes rather than like setting them up properly. Sometimes he just falls off, or sometimes he does end up in dominant position, depending on how good his opponent is at grappling or not. He is very open to basically everything, but a lot of calf kicks because of the fact that he's hunched over and like in a very low boxing stance, I guess you would say. Generally speaking, he wins on pace, not really technique. Like, he can definitely gas you out and wins rounds 2 and 3 and such, or just overwhelm you with volume. But it's like his technique is questionable. Montes is technically speaking a grappler, but tends to set up his grappling with his striking more than his wrestling. And what I mean by that is on the feet, he's like very calm, fights from the outside until he has an opportunity to enter. He'll use a variety of kicks on the outside, and from like question mark kicks to spinning back kicks. He is very entertaining to watch. He'll use his straight to mainly counter or engage like on the front foot. He's not really going to use the jab cross. He will just throw the straight alone. Basically, he wants to make his opponent start to shoot on him. He's usually not going to proactively shoot, but he is very good at getting his opponent desperate enough to shoot a takedown or get into a position where they like kind of bend down in front of him. Once that happens, he will just go for anacondas and darces nonstop. He is probably the only fighter I can think of who literally specializes in anaconda chokes. Like, that is not a common specialty, to say the least. His defense is mainly distance-based, but he's pretty good at maintaining it, so he's not that easy to hit. I am leaning towards Montes sub here. The reason why I'm not confident is because Montes can definitely gas himself from chasing the sub too much, and anacondas are not like high percentage subs, which is why I think he had like 5 submission attempts on Contender Series, and then he slowed down a lot. He did eventually get it because his opponent also slowed down a lot, but that's not always going to happen in the UFC, to say the least. On the feet, even though he is fairly technical, it can be a little bit low volume as well. So if he's going to a close decision, it could definitely be a problem for him. So even though Montes is the cleaner fighter, Turcios' volume has a chance to make up for that. But to be clear, I am still going Montes by sub, but I am not confident in that. All right, moving on to Donte Johnson versus our favorite sacrificial lamb, Cody Brundage. I will put up a poll for this, not that I think it's really necessary. All right, poll is up. UFC refuses to hire fighters from the caucus because most of them practice wrestling and sambo, but this is the evolution of MMA, something that PFL is doing. UFC is not growing in talent. So, okay, if you're talking about just having a lot of caucus fighters, there's a few issues. One of them is that they pop for steroids at a very high rate. So, especially the Dagestanis, right? Pop, I think, at a rate of like 20 times higher than the next city, which I think is something in Brazil. I forget what it is. But when you have a region that pops for steroids so frequently, or I should say PEDs, not just steroids. When you have a region that pops so frequently, it's very difficult to just be like, okay, let's just sign everyone from here. The other issue is, of course, UFC and PFL are both entertainment oriented. And if PFL is going to have a lot of fights where there's a lot of control time, they're just not going to get eyes on them. UFC, especially under Paramount, is really moving away from that type of strategy, I guess you would say. So I don't think UFC is going to suffer from not signing them, in all honesty. It's just the reality that if they're not going to be entertaining and fit the whole, like, you need to be working towards a finish, then they're just not going to be viewed or signed. Turcios is moving up in power. I could see power just is moving up. I could see the power just being too much and got dropped badly or subbed in TKO. That's very possible. So the over-under sub props would be a good prop. Potentially, if it's reasonable odds. Don't put a poll. I mean, some people voted for Brundage. All right, we will close the poll here. All right, I will get into the analysis regardless of if it's necessary or not. So, starting with Donte Johnson. So Donte Johnson is typically an explosive striker, but he did show a fair amount of wrestling in his last fight. He throws calf kicks on the outside, but due to the fact that he's smaller than the large majority of his opponents, if not all of them, he uses a lot of head movement and footwork to basically try to get on the inside and then sling hooks there. He does seemingly have one-punch knockout power. He does not have cleanly established defense, basically, other than his constant movement. The movement is harder for larger fighters to deal with, though, because they are slower, so it has been relatively effective so far. He did get the body lock slams and such against Dumas, and then finished the fight with the guillotine. However, I will say that fight looked incredibly rigged. Obviously, I don't know for sure, but that's the first person I've ever seen put their hand up to tap before a choke is even in. So, take what you will from that. I would not rely on that result being an indication of what is going to happen moving forwards. Brundage is primarily a wrestler, but he definitely does have power in his hands and has dropped a fair number of people. He mainly shoots in on blast double legs and then on the ground just tries to blast heavy ground and pound. On the feet, he just explodes in with overhand and hook combinations. Sometimes gets punished for throwing naked calf kicks, as we saw in his fight like 2 fights ago when he had that controversial decision or whatever that was. Brundage is really not spectacular anywhere, but he is dangerous, especially early in the fight, so people can have issues. Like even Rodolfo Vieira got dropped by Brundage, which, in all fairness, may have been an indication of Rodolfo Vieira's slow defense. But at the same time, it definitely shows that Brundage does have the ability to end a fight at any time. I am going to say, take a slightly controversial stance here. Donte should definitely win, right? Donte should get a TKO. I don't think this is as locked as everyone would expect, because Donte is not very good, and he dropped 2 weight classes. His only experience after dropping 2 weight classes was a really sketchy fight against Dumas, where Dumas took him down pretty much instantly as well, and was landing strikes on him. So, Dumas, Brundage, yeah, whoever's better not and such, but if Dumas didn't come to win that fight, which it really didn't seem like he did, Brundage, not that he's very good, but he is going to come to win and try to knock you out at least. So, I would not be shocked if this is a fight where something weird happens, and like Brundage chinned him, or like wrestled to a decision, or something like that, because we haven't seen how Donte's cardio is going to hold up in rounds 2 and 3. And even against Dumas, it did seem like he was slowing down a bit. So if Brundage just continuously wrestles for like 15 minutes, I could even see him taking a 29-28 here. So obviously, I will pick Donte TKO. That should happen. I just would not put your house on it by any means, if you get what I mean. This definitely could be a strange fight. All right, moving on to Cody Garbrandt versus Xiao Long. I'll put a poll for that and then answer some questions. All right, poll is up. I wouldn't say it looked rigged. I think Dumas only came for a paycheck and didn't want to get knocked out, so he fought in a way that forced Donte to sub him. That's why he tapped prematurely. I mean, at that point, it's the same difference, right? Like, whether it's like quote-unquote officially rigged or Dumas just wanted to get subbed, it's like, same result, you get what I mean. Donte could sub him. Brundage hasn't been subbed in a while. Also, Brundage got finished bad 6 weeks ago. Yeah, it's possible. And Dumas said he had only like $10 in his bank account around that time, so I don't know. I don't know with anything Dumas does. I wouldn't be shocked if this one goes over rounds at plus money. Very possible. Do you think that by denying the evolution of grappling and wrestling and implementing a fight out of boredom, the UFC will get stuck in a rut of raw talent and MMA evolution? Well, there's a few questions there, right? So if we want to go into the question of, is wrestling and grappling evolution? I don't know if it is, because UFC and combat sports in general have implemented a lot of rules over time to protect fighters. But I feel like we have to remember that the initial goal of a fight was to end the fight. Like, initially there weren't decisions, right? Decisions kind of came out of necessity, but they weren't really a thing. So I don't think the whole, like, quote-unquote evolution of taking someone down and holding them is a legitimate way to win a fight. That's why it's been phased out in the rules in terms of having any significance. But even then, it kind of needs to be discouraged even more, because it is overtly effective with the rules we have, like not being able to use grounded knees and stuff like that, right? That heavily favors wrestlers who can just like take a bad shot and not really worry what happens if they have to go down to their knees. So the other issue is I don't think UFC is going to get stuck in a rut of like talent, because there's plenty of evolution from other parts of the world and other styles. There's plenty of entertaining grapplers who are going to chase subs, who are going to chase ground and pound TKOs, or people who are going to strike on the feet. So I don't think that will ever be an issue for UFC, in all honesty. All right, I'll end the poll here. It seems like Cody's around 70%, which is a little bit surprising. I expected this to be a little bit more split, in all honesty. All right, so getting into the breakdown. So Cody Garbrandt is a very burst-oriented striker. He'll like enter the pocket with quick combinations of hooks and then try to exit before the opponent can retaliate. He tends to sit down on single strikes only when he is countering, but it's still almost all hooks. He has a shorter reach as well, kind of similar to Jesus Aguilar, so he needs to close the distance. He will use head movement and distance management as his defense, but he doesn't really guard in general. He does have good takedown defense typically. The Figgy fight seems to be an outlier, where like he got taken down and subbed fairly easily, I think in round 2. It's just that hasn't happened in the rest of his career, so I'm not going to say he has a wrestling or grappling deficit. It just seems to be a weird example there. He definitely does have offensive takedowns, but he very rarely uses them for some reason, despite them being like an effective part of his game. Recently, his cardio has not looked spectacular. Now, this is surprising because in the past he has gone a hard 5 rounds with Dominic Cruz, for example. Like, he didn't used to slow down. So I'm not entirely sure why that is. Moving on to Xiao Long. So Long is a pace-oriented striker. He throws in takedowns, but it's mainly just to make stuff up and kind of just keep you guessing. He throws both high volume and in combinations constantly, sometimes single punches from the outside, but he really wants to get on the inside with the 4 to 5 punch combo. He will mix things up to the body and work that into combos as well. He does better later in fights. Generally speaking, he loses round 1 and just early overall. His defense is basically just moving backwards, so longer strikes and combinations can definitely catch him clean. So this is a weird fight, because I feel like we say this every fight, right? Like, Cody could win this. He arguably should win this. But we don't know if he will. And now, something I will say that I feel like isn't taken into account is that it seems like Cody really has a confidence issue. What I mean by that is that in his last fight against Barcelos, Cody was winning early relatively easily. Now, younger Cody would have just continued and pushed for the knockout. Now, would he have gotten it over Barcelos? Who knows, right? But he would have tried to get the knockout, and based on how he was doing, I almost feel like he could have gotten the knockout. However, in this fight, he kind of reset, kind of took his time, kind of was like, oh, I need to slow things down a bit. I can't like continue to chase him. I can't throw at full speed, stuff like that. So I don't know what is going on in his head that's making him fight the way that he does. That being said, Xiao Long just doesn't have good defense in general. So I have to once again pick Cody Garbrandt as an underdog, and I'm going to pick him by TKO, and I am, as always, not at all confident in that because of the fact that he is doing whatever he does. Cody hasn't been training seriously in quite a while. Yeah, I mean, it seems like it, I guess. But even then, he's still very talented. So it's like, I don't know. I thought I remember Cody said he had some form of sepsis in the Figgy fight. It could have been something different. I think it was vertigo, right? He had some weird like vertigo attack where when he got taken down, he just like couldn't, he had no balance and such. He said himself since his son was born. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's always hard to pick him, and then I always end up having to pick him, and then I watch him fight, and I'm like, why did I pick him? But I know why I'm picking him. I'm still going to pick him. It is what it is. All right, moving on to Gregory Rodrigues versus Brunno Ferreira. I will put up the poll for this as well. Still don't know how Cody's plus money should be a pick him or Cody's slight favorite. I know what you mean, yeah. Robocop was at 100% briefly, but okay, back to say 70-ish% now. I just realized it's a rematch. Yes, it is. For those of you who don't know, this is a rematch. In the first fight, Brunno one punch knocked him out pretty early. This one's tough, fair. MMA fans have short-term memory. Robocop is 80-20 on typology. That's strange. Will Gamrot dominate Rebapix? Very possible. On a week's notice, no less. Yeah, agreed. All right, we're sitting at 62% on the poll right now. I'll probably close in a few more seconds. 62% for Robocop, I should specify. Going to be a boring decision because they're going to be horrified of each other's power. It's possible. All right, ending the poll here now. Robocop ended with 59%. All right, so moving on to Robocop versus Brunno Ferreira. So Rodrigues he kind of has a very inconsistent strategy. Sometimes he pressures, sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he grapples, sometimes he doesn't. So the type of fighter he is kind of really does vary fight to fight. When he does shoot takedowns, it is a variety of setups. He does have solid single legs and trips, though he doesn't always use them, of course. On the ground, he only really does damage with ground and pound. He doesn't look for subs at all for whatever reason. Defensively speaking, he is very poor. He just relies on his chin. He doesn't have any effective defense. His favorite combination is typically jab into overhands, and then sometimes he'll continue with the left hook after that. His cardio is, to say the least, not great. Even in the Kopylov fight, when like nothing was happening, he still slowed down in round 3. So, not the greatest indication if he is to fight another 5-round fight, to say the least. He has a ton of power, but he doesn't really set things up with like footwork or feints or anything. He just is kind of going to throw the same combinations over and over and just try to throw it fast enough and hard enough that it eventually lands and knocks you out. Brunno is, of course, a power puncher. He will move around the outside to wait for his opportunities and then explode in. His explosions tend to not just be one punch, they're like multiple when he comes in. So you do have to be vigilant the whole time he's throwing and not just assume that after the first punch you're okay to like stop defending. He does have a judo background, so he likes body locks and throws to get the fight to the ground. He does have blast doubles as well, but basically they're just going to be he runs you to the fence and then tries to get position to take you down from there. He will change his style and start moving forwards if he isn't having much success moving backwards. He is bad at controlling his opponent on the ground, but he is very aggressive and good at locking up quick submissions in transitions. So sometimes he will lose control, but then still end the fight with a submission right after. Honestly, I don't really see any difference between this time they're fighting and the first time they're fighting. Rodrigues still has terrible defense. Rodrigues is still, of course, dangerous. Brunno still has relatively good defense on the outside. Brunno still has one punch knockout power. Like, people are saying that Rodrigues is more patient now. I don't think that's the case, because his style really varies fight to fight, right? Like, against Kopylov, he was patient, sure. But even if you look at the first fight with Brunno, he was patient then. He's patient in some other fights earlier in the UFC. Then, of course, the Cannonier fight, he's just rushing and trying to kill him in the first round constantly. So, I don't expect him to go crazy hard in the early rounds here, but it really just feels like Brunno is a slightly more technical fighter. And not that Rodrigues does not have the ability to win this fight. He obviously does. He has the power and such, and Brunno can be hit at times. But I do have to have a lean towards Brunno and see Bruno's going to get it done by TKO, because I just haven't seen enough evolution from Rodrigues, if any, in all honesty. So yeah, Brunno by TKO, and if he does get this done, he needs a decent ranking shot, because he is winning quite a few fights. The Abus Magomedov fight was definitely a stain, but I do feel like he fixed the issues from that, isn't rushing and throwing stupid spinning elbows and such, and is not gassing himself out like that anymore. All right, moving on to Drew Dober versus Michael Johnson. I'll put a poll up for this. I know the fan analysis for this fight is going to be very interesting, to say the least. Poll is live. They moved them up to 15 ahead of this fight. Winner should get Whitaker. My opinion, fair. Well, Whitaker's moving up to 205, right? So that's not going to happen. Do you think Gregory's inconsistent, or does he just struggle with good footwork? I think that he tries to change his style for his opponents. And I think he thinks he's being intelligent. I just don't think he is. If he makes weight and is in good shape, which it looks like he is, he should get it done. Fair. Logic says Johnson, memes say Dober. Fair. Unk versus Unk matchup. Agreed. Dober via moral tendencies. Marab or Piotr and How? I'd go Marab. Have to pick Dober against the minority. Fair. Forgot Whitaker is moving up. Winner should get to Quitter or Cannonier. Yeah, that's fair. Both were reasonable options. It's Dober's hatred for Johnson type people versus the plot armor of Michael Johnson. Valid. Johnson's speed could be big here, but he's pretty old. Dober, while losing, has been fighting a higher level of comp. Yeah, I agree with that. We're close to 50-50 here. It seems very similar to the actual betting odds for this fight because there's a slight edge towards Johnson, but very barely. I'll close the poll in like a few seconds. Alright. Yeah, we're basically going to end at pretty much a 50-50. Slight edge to Johnson here. Wasn't Robocop winning the first fight before he got KO'd? I mean, nothing happened the first fight before he got KO'd. Like, pretty much, literally nothing. Alright, so moving on to the breakdown here. So, Dober is a very aggressive southpaw power puncher. He will start out poking at range with the jab, the calf kick, and the body kick, but then he will just move in and try to land the lunging left hand. He tends to lift his lead leg and then go for a lunging 1-2. It's somewhat of a bad habit, but sometimes it does also help you close distance a little bit more easily. He does have, of course, a great chin, so he is okay with getting into a bit of a brawl if necessary. He never really developed a great defense because of his chin, and his takedown defense isn't spectacular to say the least. So overall with Dober, his weakest point is his defense. Johnson is also kind of a power puncher, but it's more so because of how fast he is. He throws a lot of body strikes on the outside, using his absurdly long reach for the weight class. If you overextend, or if he finds an opening, he will just enter the pocket and sling hooks. After he's done with the combination, he'll use head movement to try to get out cleanly. The biggest issue for Johnson is that even though he'll use head movement to get back to the outside, he then backs up in a straight line after the head movement is done, which gets predictable and has gotten him caught before. He does have the ability to wrestle, of course, but he does rarely use it. Now, this is an interesting matchup for a reason that I haven't seen a lot of people mention, which is that this is a southpaw versus southpaw matchup, and both of them are very much not used to fighting southpaws and striking effectively against them. Dober's going to have a little bit more success with the calf kicks because of that. He already liked throwing a lot of calf kicks. I do expect him to throw calf kicks here even more. Johnson's probably going to have a little bit more success with the jab because of that. Throwing jab from closed stances is easier than throwing jab from open stances because you can't hand fight. So I do think it ends up being 50-50-ish in terms of how that affects things, with maybe a slight edge towards Johnson because of the fact that the hooks are probably going to be more effective from Johnson now. However, I am going to lean towards Drew Dober TKO here. I do think that Johnson is going to be winning the minutes. I do think that he is going to get ahead, maybe win round 1 and such. I think the problem is as the fight goes along, Johnson does tend to make mistakes against a decent level of competition. And making a mistake against Dober, if Johnson backs up in a straight line as Dober is lunging forwards, is probably going to get him caught by the cross and just put out cold, because Johnson just doesn't have the type of durability that you kind of need to take one of those shots. So I'm going to say Dober TKO, probably a little bit later in the fight, maybe late round 1 or early round 2. Moving on to Rob Font versus Raul Rosas. I'll put up a poll for this as well now. Alright, the poll is live. Prepelec was doing very well against Dober. Yeah, Prepelec, in my opinion, won that fight, but I do think Prepelec is a little bit underrated. I wouldn't say his chin is great anymore. It's been deteriorating, got wobbled all over the place by Silva, climbed up by Torres, then dropped bad by Prepelec. Was underrated to be fair, but still. Yeah, I mean, I would still say it's on the better side of chins, but it's not like spectacular, I agree. The speed of Johnson, I think he will probably land first, cleaner, harder, so he probably wins. Although, so Dober has been hurt and dropped in his last 3 fights bad. Well, to be fair, I do think this is a step down level of competition for Dober. who would win in a Bobby Gray and Michael Johnson matchup. That would be an interesting one. I'd probably lean towards Johnson, but it's hard to say. Do you think peace in the Middle East will be discovered before Rob Font discovers takedown defense? Possible. This fight just reminded me Oracle hasn't made a hateful video since Dober's low blow fiasco. You should make one on Cheater. I've been thinking about it. It's hard to incorporate it with the quality I've been going for recently, so I don't really know how to do it, but I have been thinking about it. We're 55% for Rosas so far. Rosas has a diamond chin. Yes, he does. No way someone with that large of a head can get knocked out. Bro, just no way. Fair. Featured fight on a pay-per-view, by the way. I mean, it's not a bad fight, but yeah, it's also not the highest ranked fight. Alright, I'm going to end this at 51% for Rosas, which is actually a little bit closer than I expected it to be. But let's get into the analysis here. So, starting with Rob Font. Rob Font is a pressure volume boxer, and he mainly relies on his jab. He'll pump out the jab constantly, which kind of helps disrupt his opponent's pace. Once he has the rhythm, he'll extend it into longer combinations. He doesn't really have the most power, so generally speaking, he has to accumulate damage to a decision. He did, of course, get that finish over, what's his name? I'm blanking on it. You guys know what I'm talking about. But whatever the case. But yeah, generally, almost all of his wins are decisions, especially recently. His takedown defense is pretty bad, but he does scramble to stand up relatively well. He mainly loses because of, like, micro mistakes that get him caught by massive shots. Like, in the Figgy fight, he was winning the minutes, and then he would, like, drop his hand as he comes in. Figgy catches him with a massive hook or something like that. Like, Font definitely makes small mistakes in his striking defense where he can get caught by Cheeto, Figgy, those types of people. And even though he will be quote-unquote winning the large majority of the fight, he will end up losing because of that. He also has been taken down 22 times in the last 5 fights. So, quite a bit to say the absolute least. Rosas is, of course, a grappler who's going to constantly chase for the submission. He does have slightly underrated stand-up. He has good teeps to maintain distance, and he can put combos together relatively well with his hands. His footwork is a little bit behind, which is why he is hittable, but he can create a threat on the feet. It's not like he just has to continue shooting takedowns. He used to shoot almost solely on double leg takedowns, but now is incorporating single legs as well. He does not have the greatest takedown setups. Generally, a lot of it is just diving on the legs. But now that he is striking a little bit more, at least it's not as projected, on the ground, he will generally chase to the back as soon as possible and look to lock up a sub from there. However, we have seen multiple times now, he has gassed in round 3. So cardio is definitely a question and concern for him. So this fight is interesting because if Rosas can't lock up a sub in round 1, which honestly, I don't expect him to, it may just be a question of who wins round 2 here. I do expect Font to be able to win round 3. I do also expect that Rosas will be able to have the gas and the takedowns to win in round 1. So, if Rosas has the cardio for 2 rounds relatively safe, where he's able to just take Font down over and over, because I do expect Font to be able to scramble to his feet a few times, then he should win this. I am leaning towards that happening, which is why I'm going to say Rosas wins a decision here. But this is one of these fights where it's like, yeah, you could definitely see the vet pulling it off. It's a strange fight, strange matchup, and so on. And it almost, like, I know Rosas isn't technically rushed, because he's been in the UFC for a while now, but it almost feels like he is rushed. I don't know, it's weird. Font isn't this washed, right? I don't think Font is washed. If chat thinks it's 50-50, Font has to be value at plus 175, Rosas in round 1 or Font in round 3 might be a decent bet. I don't think it's actually that 50-50, to be honest, even if chat does. I definitely am leaning towards Rosas making the decision. He gassed out Elevation Mexico City. He did, but he also gassed out other times, right? That's not the only time he gassed out. He did gas out several times. He's lost, I think, all of the round 3s he's had in the UFC. Font is super washed. The New England cartel is washed in general. I wouldn't say Font is super washed. It's not like he looks terrible. It's not like his physicality's gone and such. He beat, what's his name? Jin Matsumoto recently as well. Alright. Moving on to the co-main event. Caio Borralho versus Reinier de Ridder. Poll. Putting up the poll now. Alright, poll is live. Vaughn's plotty footwork is going to look terrible in this fight. He's going to get boxed up too. It's possible. Should Vince Morales still be in the UFC? I actually think he should be, because he's looked okay in every fight, right? Like, he's the perfect type of gatekeeper where it's like, he's going to have an entertaining fight every time. He's never going to quit on himself. He's always going to go for it. So why not have him around? Like, he's a guy who does earn his paychecks. Starting at 87% for Caio. We don't need a breakdown, bro. We know your opinion on DeQuitter. I will still do a breakdown, but yes, you guys all know who I'm picking, I'm sure. I wonder who Oracle is going to pick in this one. Me too. RDR stomps over his unconscious body after 2 10-7 rounds. Fair. Surprised RDR isn't named garbage. I had to keep it a little bit more, what would be the word? Professional for this, I guess. Alright, I'm going to close the poll in a few seconds. I don't think it's going to change from here. RDR is closing at 77%. So, starting with Caio. Caio is generally a strategy-oriented fighter, right? He is going to be extremely patient. He's not going to rush anything. He'll wait around, pick his moments, and so on. He'll work the jab and the calf kick constantly to get range from his reads. Once he understands how you move, he starts throwing the 1-2 and following up more so. His takedowns are mainly just blast doubles, but he will look for submissions when it does make sense. He does like to pull guillotine if he does have a good opportunity to. He tends to create threats to try to work his way out of bad grappling positions. So when Paul Craig got to his hips, he basically just punched him until Craig had to move and then was able to get up from there. The biggest issue for Caio is against fighters like Yumafov, he just doesn't give them any reason to really respect him early. And because of that, you can kind of just go downhill and such. Like, if Caio's not going to knock you out early if you are a talented fighter, and he's really not going to use his power early. And that could be a problem, and maybe he will have adjusted it after losing that fight. We'll have to see. RDR is an aggressive grappler. On the ground, he'll land ground and pound just to open up his sub, then he'll attack it immediately. When he's wrestling, he usually prefers to go for single legs if he's at distance, or get into a clinch and just go for throws. On the feet, he'll throw kicks at a distance and knees in the clinch, but he doesn't really set anything up, so it's very easy to time it. His footwork and punching looks like watching a toddler try to hit pads. It's so bad, I genuinely don't understand how it's possible for someone who's trained MMA for more than a day, and he's trained for more than 2 decades. He cannot block a straight punch for his life. It will just hit him every single time. Even when he gets fights to the ground, he will just fall off the top completely randomly, for no reason whatsoever. RDR is just an enigma of bad. I'm going to pick Caio by TKO. I don't think anyone's surprised. RDR is like one of the worst fighters I've ever seen have success in the UFC. I've been picking against him for a long time. I will continue to probably pick against him no matter who he fights. I genuinely think RDR is like absolutely garbage. I have a gut feeling that RDR will fluke his sub after getting hurt for some reason. That would be crazy, but like, Caio's not going to rush, right? We all know RDR is more skilled than Ilya Valen. Caio jab can serve him well, but his defense in the back foot is very predictable. I agree, but like, this is not a fight where it's going to matter, right? Like, you're not going to have to deal with RDR having some crazy offensive, like, forward pressure here. I heard that RDR was training with Chanko so he could balance on his third leg while throwing kicks. Does this affect your prediction? That would make me even more confident in Caio. Good reference, though. I love that. Yeah, but RDR is funny. Also, stop hurting with these extremely accurate critics. He's my goat. Fair enough. It's the Dutch style that makes RDR look bad, but he manages to pull it off somehow. I don't think that's the Dutch style. There are like plenty of Dutch kickboxers who look insanely technical. I don't think that has like anything to do with Dutch kickboxing, even though they want to call him a Dutch kickboxer. Like, it's just awkward. Like, he has zero coordination. Like, when you're watching the Whitaker fight, yes, he did manage to win that and such, but look at round 1. Whenever he gets hit by a jab, he literally like crosses over his feet as he's trying to move away and stumbles. It's like, what am I watching? Yeah, Caio should get this. Isn't a hot take from Oracle. RDR is too goofy, not DDP goofy. Yeah, exactly. Genuinely, why do you think RDR has achieved success? I think he had some very fortunate circumstances, right? Like, ONE FC just, their upper weight classes suck. That's just the reality of it. Their lower weight classes, spectacular. Upper weight classes, terrible. Then he goes into the UFC and he fights an older GM3 who gasses. And it's like, GM3's old, that's going to happen. But like, before that, GM3 was having a lot of success. Then he fights, who did he fight after that, right? Was it Bo right after? Oh no, he fought Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland can't stuff a takedown for his life. That is what it is. Then he fights Bo Nickel, and like Bo Nickel was like a little bit too heavily pushed and such, and people had a little bit too much faith in him to say the least. And like, I don't think Nickel is bad and has like no potential, right? But it was way too early for that. And then he fights a very washed Whitaker. It's like, okay, this is not like the Whitaker we've seen in the past. And then he finally fights like a fighter who's actually young and not too young, and he just gets mauled. Like, okay, yeah, shocker. RDR versus Jamal Hill. I'm taking Jamal Hill. Can we get a Fight Lab reaction after the breakdown? Maybe, we'll see. RDR special would be nice, valid. Outside the Yuri fight, this might be the most emotion Oracle has shown. You can just hear the smile behind his voice because of how comedically garbage RDR is. Valid. Alright, moving on to the main event. Now, I'm going to do analysis in a slightly different way than I normally do for this one. So I will start with the normal thing, and then we will move on from there. But first, I cannot forget the poll. Oh, and before I get to the poll, actually, when I put up the poll, I'll put up the poll, then do the promo. Alright, so the poll is live, and before I forget, if you guys are betting on this event, do consider joining my betting service. We've done ridiculously well. Last year, we were up over 250 units just on the base algorithm. That doesn't even include my reads. And this year, my reads have been incredible so far. I have like over a 76% pick accuracy, and I have not gone negative a single event this year so far. So the link is in the description if you want to join, and always feel free to DM me on Instagram with questions. Don't forget he cheated so bad against Whitaker. Yes, he did. That is true. Do you think Caio has genuine trouble seeing without his glasses? He's always squinting. Very possible, yeah. Alright, so far we have 65% for Holloway. This is like both my parents fighting. Yeah, I get what you mean. I feel like Max folds to pressure and grappling here. Watch his third fight versus Dustin just in the first 2 rounds and tell me it's not a typical Charles fight. I know what you're saying. %68% for Holloway. I'll wait a few more seconds. I'm always so freaking late to these streams. It's good to have you here, though. Club and sub from Max. That'd be something. Alright, I'll end the poll here since it doesn't seem like it is going to change much. Holloway ends at 65% in the poll. So, moving on to the breakdown for this. Obviously, neither of these guys needs really an introduction, but starting with Holloway, Holloway is, statistically speaking, the most prolific volume striker in UFC history. He has had a little bit of a power bump moving to 155 pounds, but ultimately he's still looking to land a lot of volume and slowly stack up damage that way. He pokes at range with long punches, along with keeping a very high level of volume with kicks. The body and head kicks help to keep the hands occupied of his opponent, and also, of course, slowly increase damage. He has moved away from longer trades and leaned into more blitzing combos before circling out. He does vary how he defends, but a lot of it has to do with his footwork. People think of Oliveira as a grappler, but honestly, I would say he is a more pace-oriented fighter. When fighting high-level opponents, he really just breaks them with constant pressure and fight-ending capability, instead of just pure grappling. He does keep the Muay Thai stance with the high guard and just marches forward throwing combinations. His takedowns are mainly double leg entries, but if he can work around to a body lock, he'll pick someone up and slam them down from there. On the ground, he is generally looking to take the back and get the rear naked choke, but he of course has a variety of submissions that he will go for. Of course, he will jump the guillotine if he gets pretty much any feasible chance to, and it is a very effective submission for him. He can be hit around his high guards. Since it is not a very adaptable high guard, it is kind of just putting his hands up. So I wanted to try something for this analysis. I'm not sure if it is going to work. We will see. So I've been working on something that could be a useful tool for this. And it might be a little small for you guys. We'll see if you guys can see what I'm doing. So this is if I could spell, it'd be great. I think. This is a way of doing a more thorough analysis without just getting percentages out of my head. So with the setup, I'm basically just saying what the possible outcomes are. And now, at this stage, basically, I have to put together what all the factors of the fight are. So, starting with Holloway footwork. So, Holloway footwork is kind of predictable at this point. It's a question of, can Oliveira punish Holloway's predictable footwork? So, let's see. Oliveira punishes predictable footwork. So if Oliveira can actually do this, I do think he has a high chance of racking up damage. So I'm going to say that this has like a 30 or so, let's say 25% chance of happening. And if so, it's going to give Oliveira a pretty substantial advantage here. So I'm going to say it gives him like 50 points if he's able to do so. Question for Oliveira's defense is if Holloway can catch him around the guard. I think this has a higher chance of happening realistically. The question is, can Holloway put Oliveira down from it? But I do think he is going to land at the very least. So I'm going to say this has a 75% chance of happening. I don't think this is as significant as saying Oliveira cuts off Holloway. So I'm going to say this is like 35 points because Oliveira could still get hit and still win. This has happened many times. He gets dropped, he gets clipped, and just keeps going anyway. Let's add one. So there's a question of can Oliveira take down Holloway? So let's just say Oliveira takes down Holloway. So for this one, if Oliveira is able to secure takedowns, then that gives him a lot of points in my opinion. Like this is going to be like another 50 points, I would say. Now, I don't think the percentage I can just estimate from my head. So I'm going to put that into the next section here. I'm going to add a subdriver. The way the subdrivers work here basically is that I can attribute them to any of the drivers, and then it will calculate the percentage for me without me actually just trying to make it up. So this is going to depend on a few things. So first of all, Holloway has never defended takedowns from someone like with the pure takedown strength as Oliveira, in my opinion. Arguably, of course, Volk, but Oliveira is able to get on takedowns a lot faster and is able to work with the body lock much better than Volk is because of the size difference. So I'm going to say Oliveira size difference. We'll say this has like a 30, it's like a 35% chance of being relevant, because I think that Holloway, with the amount of takedowns we've seen Holloway stuff, even from people like Poirier, I don't think this is going to be the biggest problem in the world, but if it is, it'll give Oliveira a fair number of points here. Then I would say another driver is if Oliveira focuses on the body lock rather than just the pure double legs, he's going to have a much better time. Because Oliveira can't really, what would be the word? Oliveira's blast double legs kind of die if you get back to the fence a lot of the time. Because usually, unless it's Garbrandt, who's a little bit smaller and lighter for the weight class, he's not able to really just pick people up and finish it from there. So I'm going to say if Oliveira focuses on body locks. This is like a 50-50 in my opinion. And if he does, I do think it's going to have more points. The biggest detraction from this is if Holloway's footwork is too much. I think that honestly has like a 66-ish% chance of happening. And if so, like, if it happens, oops, wrong one. Do I have an issue here? Because I don't think I can attribute multiples to the same thing. I might have a problem with that, so I might have to kind of just guess here. I'm still working on this. In a few weeks or a month, this will probably be a much better thing I can add to stream, but right now it's not perfect. Let's see. Okay, I'm able to attribute to the takedown here. Here I am not so far. Okay. Alright, I might have to make up the percentage for now then. We'll probably delete these and I'll fix that later. But let's say that the Oliveira taking down Holloway is kind of like a 50-50 right now. If he's able to do it, it's like probably 60-ish points. Let's pull it from you guys. What do you guys think are important factors in this fight? Also going to take my sweater off. It's getting ridiculously hot in here. Give me a second. The clinch for Charles? Fair. Okay. I think that also comes to the question of can Charles beat the footwork? So we'll say can Charles establish clinch? So that is probably like a 35% chance again. I'd probably give him like 30. I'll give Oliveira rather 30 points if it works. So this should be here, not there. 60. 0. 50 here. Yes. Okay, that is better. Then let's see. I will get better at this over time. This will get faster. Let's see. So then for Oliveira, it's a durability problem, in my opinion. Holloway has had some of a durability issue, but it's not as bad as Oliveira's durability issue. And this is like a 100% chance of happening because we know it's the case. I would say it gives Holloway like 20-ish points. 20 might be undershooting it. Like probably 35 points in all honesty. Normally I would fill this out more to make it actually work properly. However, for the sake of time now, since I don't want to spend another like hour on this, I'm just going to show you guys how this works. So then once we get to the visual map part of this, then we could see it plotted out properly. Based on what I gave in here, Holloway has a 54-ish% chance of winning. Now, in comparison to how this lines up with what I think, I gave Holloway a 65% chance of winning, and I think Holloway is going to win by TKO. So the ultimate prediction for this fight is I think that Oliveira getting caught around the guard is just going to be too much in general. That being said, the longer the week goes along, I do have a weird feeling about this fight. Because Holloway is so reliant on staying on the back foot and circling because of the fact that he has less power than his opponents and generally speaking less physicality than his opponents. So there is a world in which Oliveira gets in on a takedown and it just looks like the takedown against Garbrandt where he was just able to pick him up and slam him down. I don't think it's going to happen, but it is very possible. Will Max follow Charles to the ground? I think he will. And that could be a good or bad thing for him. I'm not sure. If Charles connects, Holloway's going to sleep. I do kind of agree, yeah. I think every negative people give Oliveira chin defense, strike absorption also applies to Max while having significant power and grappling advantage, but not out for a reason. I think the problem with that is that Max's defense is just much better in general. Like, Oliveira does not have much defense except the high guard he puts up. Holloway is going to keep moving on the back foot and keep circling away from the power strikes, which is going to negate a lot of the damage. Does Charles really cut the cage off? He doesn't purposely cut the cage off with footwork, but sometimes he does so with strikes. So if we see how he caught Dariush, he was able to catch Dariush circling out. Either way this fight goes, it could be dominant. Yeah, I agree. How did you make the AI, or did you not yourself? Way too much code and math. That is how I made it, unfortunately. It's not an AI, though. It's more basic math than AI, but yes. Charles' offensive wrestling in the past few years has improved so much. I agree with that. The leg kick is a good thing for Charles. True. He should let a lot of calf kicks here. Spinning back kick from Max could lead to a body lock, one of the worries I have for Max. Max probably isn't going to throw that except at the end of rounds, though. It's really if Charles implements leg kicks early. That could definitely help him, but I don't think alone it's going to be able to do anything. How come you don't rate the grappling very highly? What grappling? Max got dunked on his head by Volk and Ilya and has been dropped 3 times in a row. The champion has a name. I think the issue is that he wasn't expected from Ilya because the striking is the danger, and Volk struck for a long time before he used the takedowns. So Oliveira is not going to have the same luxury there, let's say. People who try to take down Max get him down. Yair even got a takedown for a moment. Yes, but the problem is the people who take him down tend to set it up with a ton of striking. Now, could Oliveira do that? Yes, very possibly. But Max is going to be much more focused on a takedown here than he was against, like, Yair. So ultimately, yeah, I do, and I hope I'm wrong as an Oliveira fan, but I am leaning towards Max being able to eventually find the TKO here just by throwing hooks and, like, maybe overhands around Oliveira's guard and such. But I don't think that Holloway is an 100% lock here or whatever in that realm. All right, we'll just answer questions for a few minutes, and then we'll see if we want to do something else. I haven't seen Holloway getting affected by leg kicks, to be honest. Like, Volk butchered Max's calf, but Holloway's able to keep up the footwork. Yeah, and the fact that he could switch stances also creates a problem there. You see the lead leg stomps for Max being effective against the Muay Thai stance. I don't think he'll use them as much because of the takedown threat. Charlie is washed. But you could say Max is washed by logic, right? I don't think either of them is in their prime at this point. Who has better teeps among the two? Probably Oliveira. Charles gets hit by everyone he fights. Max has been wildly dominant on the feet since he's been at 55. True, but he did have that moment against Poirier that wasn't that encouraging. Why is Brunno an underdog? I'm not sure. Are there any good grapplers in Hawaii for Max to train with? I mean, he always brings in people, right? It's not like he's relying on people there. If Oliveira goes out there and kicks at range, slam kicks, keeps, and shoots takedowns, he could make the fight look easy. It's a good and hard fight to predict. It's possible. Fight Lab Bros. Maybe we'll get to that. I'll see if there's anything new there. Thoughts on a Lee Max parlay? I mean, it's feasible, right? I mean, Max I'm not terribly confident in. I think we should also bring up the kicking game both. Max does have the better leg kick game with the Charles much to count for. He does great work with kicks, took steam out of Justin's. To some extent, I do think Oliveira has slightly more powerful kicks than Max, though, and he has a tendency to use them, to say the least. I don't think that's a problem. Thoughts on Oliveira's deep game? I mean, yeah, same thing as I've just been saying. Do you think the betting service is beneficial for someone like me who lives in an area where most popular books aren't available? Well, do you mean like most popular books or like all books? Because if you have stuff you can use, then you can use it. If it's like you don't have the ability to bet, that's obviously fair. Then it's not going to be able to do much for you. But if you have like Ollie Market or Kalshi and stuff, there's plenty of people in that just use stuff like that. How do you think Van's takedown defense and get-ups will work against Tyra? Not well enough, in my opinion. Is Gamera really just that bad? Gamera's not bad. Again, he beat Armin for a reason. Who would you want to see Whitaker fight a light heavyweight? I think Hill is a good fight. Anyone betting on Charlie is crazy. Charlie likely won't get another top-ranked lightweight win. He is washed. I mean, he just did. He just subbed Gamera, right? So it's hard to say he's terribly washed after he just subbed Gamera. And again, has anyone else finished Gamera? Like, it's not an easy thing to do. Charles will 1-2 head kick Holloway if Holloway goes southpaw. Holloway's not going to stick around for the head kick, but Charles can try it, sure. What's the Xiao Long versus Cody pick? I reckon Long gets a round 3 TKO. I'll go through all the predictions one more time for anyone who wasn't here. I'm saying Fernandez by TKO, Lee by decision, Tobias by, I forget if I said submission. I think I said submission, yeah. Submission. Sumudaerji decision. Khan 2.0 by TKO. Montes by submission. Johnson by TKO. Garbrandt by TKO, Brunno by TKO, Dober by TKO, Rosas decision, Caio TKO, and Max TKO. That's an Oliveira KO. I don't think it's likely. Even if Oliveira drops Max, I expect him to go for a sub. Really interested to see how urgent Charles is early because he really had no respect for Cameron anywhere. Yeah, agreed. Just think to myself that Max will have trouble with the body lock size advantage. Maybe. Champion has a name and the best is blessed. Going to be a sad night either way. Oracle. Valid. Are you confident in Luke Fernandez beating Bellato? Not crazy, no. I genuinely think Max took his foot off the gas against Poirier first round. Couldn't have been more on one side. It's very possible. Could we see Charles hit him with a straight right like Ilya did as Max is switching stances, backing out? Okay, so that's a little bit of a misconception. Ilya didn't hit Max as he was stance switching. It was a little bit more complicated than that. I will have a video on that soon, either tomorrow or the next day, like about what specifically happened in that sequence, but it wasn't actually a stance switch. Or at least it wasn't intended to be, I will say that. Olives gets his back is generally over for Max. Very likely, yeah. Did you see Max saying the most BMF thing he could do is submit Oliveira? I do think he's just saying stuff, or consider he might go for more subs this fight. I think he's just saying stuff for the most part, but like if he gets an opportunity to try, he might. DPMAO Charles doesn't have those types of reads. I'm not sure what you're responding to, but Yuri Olberg. I'm leaning Yuri. People forget how short Max's arms are too. Yeah, he does have a small reach. But he's a much better grappler and much more physical than Max. He will get pushed to the pace by Charles. Imagine Max. Sort of, but Max also has more circling related footwork. So it's a lot harder to get like an entry on him like that, where Ilya is going to stand in front of you. Charles really lost to two people that end up being good to the sport, and people are calling him washed. Yeah, exactly. My concern with Charles is he was supposed to be dangerous and the law is there, but look how many positions he had against Chandler and didn't look that dangerous. To be fair, Chandler's very hard to sub for whatever reason. Oracle, does your analysis consider me blowing up the universe if Oliveira loses? It does not. Combos and Max are a scary thing for Charles and he needs to get to the fence quick. Charles also heartbreakingly makes some silly defensive choices, true. Max Topuria rematch, who's winning? Topuria. If Justin can clip Max at any points in the fight, Charles can too. That's possible. You have a video on that already. Ilya did a great sub. Yes, true, I do. I'm going to make another one that incorporates that. But yes, there is the older video on that. Good point. Who can beat Islam? Ilya. Gamrot beats Dustin and maybe Dustin. Yeah, solid chance. What does Max need to do against Ilya in the rematch? I don't know if there's much he can do. There's just too much of a skill discrepancy at this point, to be honest. Charles beat everyone Holloway beat, but when they were better and beat them faster. True. Gamrot once said Charles was ducking him. It was kind of hilarious. Fair. I will readjust my statement then. Charles is overrated unless he climbs back immediately. He will get masterclassed. I mean, how can he be overrated again when his title run included a ridiculously long win streak where he subbed Poirier, he subbed Gaethje, what else? He knocked out Chandler. Stuff that's not the easiest to do. Again, guys who have done well at the top of the division for a while. Hey Oracle, I missed the stream again. Can you go over the picks, please? Yeah, sure. In a minute or two, I'll go over it again. You said before the way to beat Ilya is to throw with him and hope you can put him out, right? Not saying he wins, but does Uros Medic have a chance stylistically? Like, do you want that style to fight Ilya? Yes. Is Uros Medic also much lower level and does not have a chance? Yes. But I get what you're saying, right? Like, you do kind of want that style, yes. I feel like Ziyama Rufi has the best chance against Ilya outside of Islam. I don't think any of them have a good chance. Yeah, I mean, maybe Rufy. Ziam, it's like, I don't feel like he has enough power, but I do get what you're saying. He is very skilled. Why are the new posts not on YouTube? I don't always cross-post to YouTube now because I'm not sure if their copyright stuff is a little more strict. I've seen people have issues with that. What's your pick? I'm picking Holloway by TKO, technically. Why should we purchase the betting service you provide when you have these breakdowns here? Because I actually give the bets there and algorithms that are beyond my breakdown here, to say the least. So you get a lot more information there. You can obviously, for free, I still hope you guys do well with the reads I have here, but in the betting service, it's a very different level of stuff. Prime Poirier versus Islam and Garbrandt versus Esteban. I might lean Poirier and probably Garbrandt. Random question: if they were the same size, who would win between Charles and Merab? Probably Merab, but not confidently. How do you think Ilya does at 170? Fine. Islam beats any Poirier, to be honest. I mean, he struggles with a very old Poirier, so I don't think so. The way you beat Ilya is like Bryce, constantly mixing in takedowns and strikes with elite kicks. Armin has this style, however, the striking difference in speed is too much. Armin will get cracked on panic. I mean, mixing in takedowns isn't necessarily the best way to go because he's gonna down block it. It's not like he's gonna like crazy sprawl or panic or something like that. I don't honestly think that really helps. Oliveira had 2 torn ligaments in his knees versus Chandler second fight. Yeah, I know. Can you rank the possibility outcomes in the main event in likelihood? I mean, obviously it's Max TKO, then Charles sub, then probably Charles TKO, then maybe Charles decision, then Max decision, then Max sub. Ilya's BJJ is being underrated versus Armin's wrestling. I agree there, yeah. I just see a lot of similarities between how Ziab and Herbert strike. Agreed, but Ilya has also improved since then. Oliveira has to bring out his inner Hamza Chimaev and do the same for 25 minutes. That would be insane. Oracle, do you have an arch nemesis? Do you need any help in neutralizing him? Luckily not yet, but if it happens, I will happily accept your help. Ilya versus Prates? I'd still lean Ilya. Do you think Merab beats Jan in the trilogy and does he finish him? I think it's a decision now, but I do have to lean Merab, yes. Genuinely, Jai Herbert literally had the best performance against him in the first round. Yeah. What are your thoughts on Islam versus Morales being rumored for UFC 330? If Islam wins, I think Ian Gary beats him. It's possible. I mean, on both accounts, right? Islam versus Morales seems like it's happening, and I could see Gary beating him. If anyone isn't in the server and you bet, join it. It's actually the best decision I've ever made betting wise. The community is great. I've learned a lot, to be honest. I appreciate the promo help there. What pay-per-view is Poirier's prime in? I'd have to check. I don't know. Probably like around the time he fought like Eddie Alvarez. Like if we're talking about physicality wise. Heading out, good picks, great stream. Peace. Have a good night. Charles' decision over Mac's decision is crazy. Initially, I was thinking that. I changed my mind because I don't think Max can be winning a fight and not get a TKO here. Charles hypothetically could wrestle for 25 minutes. Not that I think it's very likely to happen, but it's feasible. Do you think Ilya subs Armin or Islam? No, I just think he knocks him out. Needs to get Ilya out of boxing position because he's just going to throw like Charles versus Charles. He couldn't throw smudge against the fence. The only reason Charles survived is the grappling. Well, that's just a way to survive longer, though. You're not going to beat him that way. The people want you to watch Fight Labs. We'll see if we could do a video, yes. Fight Lab might need to be eliminated fair. Torres versus Dariush is going to be free under 1.5. I mean, just take Torres round 1 TKO. Be real. Jordan Levitt or Kelvin Cater? At this point, Jordan Levitt. What makes Connor such a bad matchup for Ilya? Southpaw, one-punch knockout power, and good countering. Do you think it's possible to just outskill Ilya for 5 rounds per round and for firing on the front foot? It's possible. I mean, I think it's easier to knock him out than do that. I don't care if Oliveira fights like Gelson Almeida and Hamza. I just don't want to see him lose. That's fair. Fear of the underdogs. Yeah. Have you seen the odds for Van Tyra? If so, what's your thoughts? I expected Tyra to be a bigger favorite, to be honest. Might take Torres by KO in the first minute of round 1. Valid. I think Caio gets it done easily. RDR looked absolutely awful against Brundage on a short notice. Yeah. Caio should get it done very easily. I think there are some similarities to Ilya and Max's styles that could cause problems, especially with the counter boxing him Max in the second. Is second in the division, third roofie. Fair. Oliveira club and sub. It's possible for sure. How do you see the grappling playing out between Ilya and Connor? I think it would be just neutralized in all honesty. Alright, let me see if I could find a Fight Lab video that I want to react to. Alright, there's one in the Strickland fight. Let's see what I think about this. Let's put on the desktop audio.
When Sean Strickland throws an inside leg kick, Anthony Hernandez does something kind of strange. Why would he drop his elbow to protect his side if the kick was aimed for his leg? This was a...
What? Did I hear that right?
Hernandez does something kind of strange. Why would he drop his elbow to protect his side if the kick was aimed for his leg?
Okay.
This was a huge tell that Hernandez was thinking about the teep.
Yeah, that's... I guess, I don't know if I'm too judgmental because maybe he has like a lot of pure casuals watching this. But like, yeah, obviously, if he blocked the body, he was thinking about getting hit to the body. I don't think it takes a genius to realize that one.
Which Strickland took advantage of. Strickland spent most of this fight moving backward, but because he circles as he retreats, he never ran out of room.
Yes, that's true.
Hernandez to constantly chase him. When Strickland takes a step back, Hernandez steps forward to close the extra space that was just created. This is when Strickland throws his teep, so that Hernandez is stepping into it. If Strickland even just raised his back leg, it forced out a big defensive reaction. Strickland...
This is part of Fluffy just being weak to the body, in all honesty. Like, it's a massive disadvantage, and it's just, like, there's no nice way of saying this. It's kind of just a laziness thing, right? Like, Fluffy is kind of fat at the division. And if he just properly put in the effort to have a strong core, this wouldn't be as big a problem for him.
Had set a trap. As Hernandez is closing in on him, Strickland pops his hand out as if he were throwing a right hand, which gets Hernandez to reach out on the same side to block a big defensive reaction. Strickland had set a trap. As Hernandez is closing in on him, Strickland pops his hand out as if he were throwing a right hand, which gets Hernandez to reach out on the same side to block it. This completely opens up his midsection, so when Strickland raises his knee, Hernandez anticipates a teep and drops his elbow down to protect it, completely exposing his head on the lead side, and Strickland finished with a right hand that landed clean.
That is true. Yeah. I mean, this video wasn't wrong, it was just, a lot of it was super obvious, so I can't, like, complain about that, because the audience he caters to is definitely better than is different than the audience we cater to say the least. I will say Eric Nixick did a very good job game planning for this fight. And Strickland definitely listened because he fought this pretty perfectly. It's very digestible for the audience. Yeah, it is, for sure. DDP or Imavov, and how can DDP beat Hamza in the rematch? I'd lean DDP, but not confidently. I mean, all DDP has to do is just work on the wrestling a lot, right? Like, if he's able to get it closer, he could probably gas out Hamza and fight. But that's very difficult to do. Torres be minus 500. Stylistically, there's generally no route for Benil to win. Yeah, I mean, I assume he will be minus 500. A lot of these YouTubers just say what's going on in the fight. Very few talk about weaknesses and win conditions beforehand. Yeah, it seems like it. Islam head kick TKOs Morales. He holds his hands too low and only manages distance while he's ridiculous reach. I just don't think Islam's going to be able to head kick that far unless he steps in, which I don't think he's going to be willing to. Are you saying that because Eric followed you before the fight? Am I a little biased because of that? It's possible, but I do think it was very good game planning in general, right? Having Strickland circle on the outside negated pretty much all of Fluffy's like wrestling ability, and he was able to just pick at him and set up stuff with the teeps. How do you think GSP versus Whitaker would have gone if GSP didn't retire after beating Bisping? I mean, GSP probably would have made it look fairly easy, in all honesty. Thoughts on DDP's mentality saying he felt like he was beating Khamzat on the fight? Okay, that was kind of like misquoted, right? Or I don't want to say misquoted because he did technically say that, but they removed so much context when putting that in posts that it was just absurd. So what DDP was actually saying, for those of you who didn't see the whole thing, is that DDP said that he thought he could finish Khamzat until he heard there was 10 seconds left in the fight and realized he used too much time on the clock. But he was saying going into round 5, he still felt like he could finish Khamzat and felt like he was fresher than him and such. And I mean, that looked true because he was the only one who worked towards a finish in that round. So it wasn't a crazy thing to say, he just said it in a slightly weird way. Easier to read what happens in a fight because you're literally seeing what happens. They probably can't give good prediction breakdowns. True. Mark Nixick had a lot of tries at Fluffy, Roman, Edmund, and Michele has a lot of first-hand experience on him. True. He won't need to step in. Morales will force an exchange. He will not respect Islam's striking, as he said. He's huge and has no real reason to. Islam's kicks are fast and almost caught JDM. Well, you can't just start kicking when someone is trying to punch you in the face, right? Like, you have to kick in kicking range with small exception. So if he is not kicking when it's on the outside, he can't kick when Morales forces an exchange. That's not going to work. That will get him knocked out. Whitaker versus Guskov? Good question. I'd probably lean Whitaker, but not confidently. Do you think Drew Dober beats MJ via common patterns or bad matchup style-wise? More bad matchup. Eric is one of the coolest coaches. Fair. I don't know if you talked about this, but what do you think about Adesanya Pyfer fight? If Adesanya loses, he just retire. If he loses, yes, he should retire. And I am leaning Pyfer. Are you worried for Yuri? I kind of am, to be honest. Yeah, I am. Gary is a boring decision merchant. Michael Morales versus Islam is the right matchup at 170. I don't mind either matchup, to be honest. I'm fine with Morales getting the shot. What is the highest ranked fighter on the pound for pound list Tyra can beat if he was the same size? I mean, Islam. Morales' punching range is Islam's kicking range. Yes, kind of. I mean, Morales doesn't have that crazy a reach, right? People talking about head kicks also aren't factoring the height difference in Morales versus Islam. Pretty sure Brady and Islam are listed at the same height, but Morales looks like 7 inches taller than Brady. Yeah, that is true, I believe. You unbiasedly see value in Caio at minus 290 and you worry about his motivation. I see Caio at minus 2,000. Someone asked for path to victory for RDR. Sorry, I completely forgot to respond to that. It's tough to say. Maybe just like try to get one takedown per round and sit on it. Because if he goes for too much, he's going to fall off the top because Caio's a good grappler and RDR is terrible control. But if he just like sits on it and doesn't go for anything, maybe he could just lock up the position for the round. I feel like Carlos hits much harder than Khalil, and Fury can't afford to get caught by Carlos. He's going to need to keep his range. Yeah, that is true. He definitely needs to be more defensively responsible this time. None of Yuri's wins have had the one punch power and sharp countering of Volberg. It's a very bad matchup. It's so hard to pick against Yuri because of his bullshit. I would say Reyes has as good countering. I think Olberg is a little better on the front foot than Reyes, though. RDR via cage push trust. That would be something. Sorry if I missed it. Do you have Yuri or Olberg? I'm leaning Yuri, but I'm not confident. Caio versus RDR under 1.5 rounds. That's hard to say because Caio definitely takes his time, so I'm not confident. Azamat or Olberg? I'd say Azamat. Olberg doesn't even have one punch KO power. He slept Noach and Reyes after having mid 29-28s against Volkan and Jan. He has one punch knockout power, in my opinion. He's just not always able to land it. That's a setup issue, not really a power issue. Morales' reach is 79 inches, or even many light heavyweights don't have that kind of reach. Okay, yes, but translate that now again, divide that advantage by half, because you're only having, it's only the amount you can have in one arm, right? You're not punching with both arms. So do that, and it's not like your punching range all of a sudden turns into like very different. It's, you have an advantage in punching range in terms of you could do it from further, sure, but it's not going to like completely transform things there. Turcios could win against Montes. He only got choked out once, and Montes got KO'd by 2 and 3 opponents 2 years ago. It's possible. What do you even do with Izzy if he wins? I don't even know. It gets tough. I guess you like beat him to another prospect. Higher or Ilya pound for pound? I'd slightly lean Ilya right now. Azamat or Costa? I have to say Azamat, but I'm not crazy confident. Montes was KO'd at bantamweight. Oh, that's good to know. Yeah, that is not as much a factor then. But yeah, if Costa's able to pull the fight into rounds 2 and 3 and just not gas at all, because his cardio looked better when he fought Vittoria at 205. So if he could do that, he definitely has a chance. Rumble or Yuri? Ooh, that's a tough one. I might have to lean Rumble. I can't tell if Azamat is overrated or underrated. I think he's about accurate right now. I think pre-Rakic fight, he was underrated. One now for Vinicius. Get executed by someone at 145 and then retire. I'm pretty sure on Instagram, Costa said he's about 240 right now. Yeah, I mean, that I could. I do think he is a much more natural light heavyweight than middleweight, to say the least. Rumble or Pereira? I'd lean Pereira, but not confidently. What do you do with Yuri if, God forbid, he loses to Carlos, move down? I guess. I don't know, it's a tough situation. Azamat is good boxing, timing, power, true. I think Rumble is the hardest hitter in light heavyweight division history, probably. Khalil is good on the front foot with his blitzes. Olberg needs space for you to come in and counter. It's not a tit for tat counter fight. He's not going to do well against Yuri. I hope you're right. We'll see. Only reason Islam will beat Ilya is because of size difference. Not because he's a more well-rounded fighter than Ilya. I mean, Islam's not going to beat Ilya. I'm going to head out now. W stream, have a good night. Have a good night as well. Yuri BS factor here because Olberg will have a hard time making greeds. Fair. DC or Yuri? Yuri, because DC gasses out. Hypothetical matchup between light heavyweight DC and Yuri. Yeah, Yuri will win. I do see Olberg getting overwhelmed. I mean, I hope you guys are right. Obviously, most of you know that I love Yuri, so. Is it worth parlaying Luke Fernandez? Ask those questions in the betting service. I'll help you out there if you need it. If Ilya gets matched up against Islam, what's your confidence level in Ilya? Like 80 to 85%. I mean, you don't think that Islam's weight and power will be too much for Ilya at 170? No. They can fight at any division, Ilya will win. Alright, guys. my energy is definitely fading. I can definitely feel I'm still a little bit sick, unfortunately, but I appreciate you guys being here. If you guys are betting on this event, do consider checking out my betting service. The link is in description here. Again, thank you all for coming. I hope you guys have a good night, and I hope you guys enjoy the event. So I'm going to end stream now. But yeah, have a good one, everyone, and I will see you guys next time.